AEW Dynamite is trending up. Raw and Smackdown trending down. It's gotten to a point now where AEW Dynamite has actually beaten Raw and Smackdown in some of the key demographics in the ratings. Also, Dave Meltzer's reporting that Vince McMahon is admitting WWE needs new stars. We're talking about it on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. So, Ralph, let's talk about this. There's a lot to talk about here. So, Dave Meltzer is reporting that AEW Dynamite beat Raw and Smackdown in the female 18 to 34 demographic this past week, where AEW Dynamite got 58,000 viewers in that demographic, Raw got 55,000 viewers, and SmackDown got 43,000 viewers. Now, Raw and SmackDown have no competition. AEW Dynamite has NXT, and the trend in the last couple weeks is that NXT has gone down, Dynamite has gone up. Dynamite has really drawn a lot of viewership in the last couple of weeks, Ralph. Now they're at 845,000 the past week, including the last 4 minutes of the Young Bucks versus Butcher and the Blade getting over 1 million viewers. So obviously Dynamite is trending in the right direction, WWE in the wrong direction. Why is that? Is it the pandemic? Is it the lack of stars? Is it that they need to build new stars like Vince McMahon admits? Or is this a changing of the times where something new is finally lit in a fire in the wrestling industry?
I think it's a little bit of all of that. I certainly think that the pandemic is playing a little bit in this. I think that the pandemic has accelerated what we've known for years, and that is WWE has been complacent, mostly because it hasn't had a legitimate type of competition like a WCW, or most recently now, what I would consider AEW as competition to them, where they can truly challenge them and key demographics and viewership and all of that type of stuff. Granted, AEW is still relatively new. How successful they're going to be in the long term still remains to be seen. But they really haven't had to worry about competition. And when you don't have competition to keep you honest and make sure that your product's fresh and good and enjoyable, you become complacent. When I watch WWE product, what I see is status quo. Same thing, safe, regurgitated storylines, regurgitated gimmicks. Nothing is pushing the envelope in a way that keeps you entertained or hooked or wanting to see more or watch the next week. I mean, if I'm talking about just an example from SmackDown last night, a lot of people have been critical about the Jeff Hardy storyline. Now, depending on what you think of that, whether you feel like it's a good storyline or edgy or whatever, most people would probably say that it's in poor taste, given that he does have this background where he has struggled with addiction. Now, I got to think that Jeff Hardy has signed on to most of this and that he's open-minded with it and at least accepting to do this type of storyline. But really now in 2020, are these really the storylines that we want to see? They have a guy like Matt Riddle that's coming out that could be maybe, in my opinion, one of their bigger stars, because I feel like he can resonate with that younger 18 to 49 demographic, especially the younger demographic that I was talking about.
Right.
And then you have him he's going to go into a feud with a guy that's dressed like a king. It's 2020 now, and we still have guys coming out dressed as kings and talking about this is my kingdom. And now this whole feud essentially is going to revolve around a king's ransom, like they talked about. Like, this is not entertaining anymore. These are regurgitated storylines, contract signings. I think last week or 2 weeks ago, they had a karaoke skit. It's just safe, status quo, boring. The E for entertainment doesn't stand for entertainment anymore, in my opinion. And that's a major problem, especially when you have a group of young, hungry individuals in AEW that want to go out there. And one, it's entertaining. Two, it's different. And it's fresh every single week.
I agree to a lot of what you're saying, but here's the thing. I put up a poll on our community page asking people, does WWE need to build new stars? The options were yes, no, they already have them. They just have to come back. No, NXT is building them. And no, they're already building those stars. The reason I put those options on there is simply because all those answers are basically right. They do need to build new stars because WWE or any business should always be building the next big thing. They do have stars in NXT. Keith Lee, Karrion Kross, Tommaso Ciampa, Adam Cole. Are they building stars right now? Yes. Drew McIntyre, Braun Strowman, Bray Wyatt. They're there. The problem is fans do not trust WWE to build them the way they should. I think fans are more forgiving with AEW than they are with WWE. Now, has AEW been perfect with their booking? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. I think there's been times where AEW has booked themselves into a corner, similar to what we saw WWE book themselves into a corner. For example, WWE, they'll book Bray Wyatt versus Seth Rollins in a Hell in a Cell match, and we have that terrible finish that halted the momentum of The Fiend. AEW, they have Lance Archer facing Cody for the TNT Championship, Brian Cage facing Jon Moxley for the AEW Championship. They kind of booked themselves into a corner. How do they protect both individuals in the finish? And I think AEW does a better job at getting themselves out of that corner than WWE does. And that's part of the problem. How do you protect both people without halting the momentum of one of the participants? And that's the problem WWE always gets themselves into. They book themselves into a corner. They can't get themselves out of it.
Well, I think part of the problem with that is, going back to what I was saying about WWE being safe, they don't let their talent take risks. They don't let their talent go out there and cut a promo without it being scripted, at least if you listen to just about every single wrestler that's been released from the WWE in the past year and a half. Mm-hmm. And it's surprising. Oh, I shouldn't say surprising. You could tell that the people that are getting released have talent. A guy like Eric Young goes back to Impact Wrestling, comes out, cuts a promo. It's a good promo, probably because it wasn't scripted. The Good Brothers go out there, they command the room, they look confident, and they come across as a tag team that you should care about. Why can't they do this in WWE? Because they're not allowed to. And that's a major problem. When you have guys in AEW that are allowed to go out there, from everything we understand, and there's even a certain level of creative control, whether they go out there and they fuck up and they learn from it, or they go out there and they command the room and it's awesome, at least they're learning, or at least they're getting their people are getting their true self, like the character that they want you to see. It's different. With WWE, it's so status quo and safe. So, just as example, with Eddie Kingston, a guy that nobody had ever heard of, he was able to come out, cut a promo in the first 4 minutes. He was probably more over than anybody in WWE in the past couple months.
I agree.
People are allowed to go out there. Guys like Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara. You don't get that in WWE. You get status quo. You get very,
cookie cutter.
Yeah, just the repetitive, regurgitated storylines and regurgitated promos. Nothing is edgy. Nothing pushes the envelope. And that's why people can't connect with the characters, because it's all so status quo and straightforward.
Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that WWE has done everything wrong and everything is crap and everything is shit. Because there have been some positives during this, 3-4 month period of the pandemic. I think what they're doing with Bayley and Sasha Banks has been very, very good. And they've done a really good job at kind of building the women's division again with Nikki Cross, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Kairi Sane. I know Kairi Sane's leaving, but still having her in the mix. Nia Jax for a little bit. They're doing what they can to build that division. There's other parts. I think the build with Drew McIntyre has been very, very good. I know people complain that we get the same matches over and over and over again. Would you believe me if I told you that Drew McIntyre has not faced the same opponent for the WWE Championship in consecutive pay-per-views since his reign?
Well, yeah, I know that to be true, but most people would probably not say that.
Right. That's when was the last time that's happened with a champion that has not faced the same opponent in consecutive pay-per-views? Yep. He faces Big Show right after he beats Lesnar. Then he goes on to face Rollins. Then he goes on to face Lashley. Then he goes on to face Dolph Ziggler. So there's something there. And I think his storytelling has been very good. And this whole thing with Ziggler, I think, has really gotten him to what we should see out of Drew McIntyre. Randy Orton is having possibly his best run in 2020.
Yep.
Like his best run of his career in 2020. And it could lead to Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton. At least that's the rumor. Here's the problem. Vince McMahon always relies on the past and risks his future. So are we worried about Randy Orton getting the WWE Championship off of Drew McIntyre? And that's part of the problem. AEW, they use Jericho to get a guy like Sammy Guevara over, to get a guy like Orange Cassidy over. Jon Moxley uses a guy to get Darby Allin over. Same with Cody. Cody using the TNT Championship to help bring new faces to wrestling. And that's what the younger audience wants. And that's what WWE is not connecting with the younger audience with.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a comment in the poll that I put up where they said that the storylines are stale and unrelatable. I think AEW is a very relatable content right now, where WWE, you brought it up with the King's Ransom stuff. There's a lot of unrelatable content. You know, Naomi and the Miz and Morrison segment, where the Miz and Morrison are putting stars with Seth Rollins' face puking. Stupid, unrelatable. So that's the stuff they have to stop doing. Can they build new stars? Absolutely. They have one of the deepest rosters this company has ever seen. They just don't use them right. That's the problem.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And when I say WWE, I'm referring to SmackDown and Raw, because NXT week in and week out normally is a good product, and Triple H is able to create stars or worked with the guys to where they feel special. You mentioned a bunch of them: Adam Cole, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano. The list goes on and on. The problem really is when that good, fresh, young talent goes up to the main roster, like you pointed out, typically they don't go over the veterans, and they're not really put in a position or given the creative freedom to go out there and do what they want to do. Maybe they'll go out there and they'll cut a promo and it's not going to resonate with the fans, but at least they'll learn from that. At least they'll grow from it, instead of being handed a piece of paper and say, here, we want you to go out there and say this, this, and this, and then you're going to take an F5, you're going to get pinned, and then, we'll keep you off TV for 5 weeks and we'll bring you back. Why can't Ricochet go out there and get over like Darby Allin? Why can't Nakamura go out there and get over like Sammy Guevara? Why can't a guy come out like Kingston did on AEW? Why can't they come out and go the distance with a good veteran and get over? It's possible. Guys can even lose. Look at Darby Allin. He's lost to Cody countless times, but he's still able to look good in defeat. WWE doesn't try to do these things, or at least is so tone deaf that they can't tell that this is what you're doing to your talent. Like, I understand why guys like Brock Lesnar go over and are the top guy in WWE, because he is a draw. Whether people want to admit that or not, he is a draw at the end of the day. There's more than enough evidence to prove that type of stuff. But they have to do a better job of allowing the talent to go out there. And even if it means they're going to screw up or make mistakes, they have to give them freedom. When you look at AEW, it is a product that feels fresh and different. One, because it is fresh and different and it's new. But when you look at what they're doing, when you look at the matches on WWE Raw and SmackDown, you get your status quo, straightforward, headlock, hip toss, this, and that. You're going to see very similar matches, safe. And that's fine. I'm not saying it's bad wrestling. Some people even enjoy it. I enjoy Timothy Thatcher, who is like a throwback, just as much as I'm going to enjoy like a Darby Allin match. I can enjoy all of it. But people are used to that. They might be sick of it. They just may not, when they turn on professional wrestling and they're watching a WWE product, they may just say, I've seen this before. And then you go turn on AEW and you see guys diving off the top of the stage, and you see thumbtacks and all that stuff. Granted, I get it. Your traditional wrestling purists, like your historians, may turn that off and say, that's not for me, I'm not into that. But people are going to see that, and it's going to draw them in because it's different. It's not something you've seen from WWE for the past however many years, because they haven't had to really push the envelope too much. Now they have competition, and that competition is young and hungry, and they're giving them a fresh product. And I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
I think WWE, to their own right, are trying to do something different with these cinematic matches. The Boneyard match was very, very well executed. I think a lot of people could agree to that. Everything else since then, not so well. When this pandemic is over, do you think WWE continues those cinematic matches to be different, where AEW is trying to kind of bring back the Attitude Era with tables and thumbtacks and, being a little looser with their language on promos and being more passionate and less scripted stuff, where people could choose, okay, do I like the entertainment of wrestling or do I like the sport of wrestling?
Yeah.
So what do you think it is?
Well, I don't know the exact date off the top of my head, but I know that very specifically the entire McMahon family, including Triple H, came out and in front of all the fans said, we hear you. We know the product's stale. We are going to change. It's changed a little bit, but every time you think it's going to get better, it just reverts right back to the safe status quo product that you get. So It's one of those things like, okay, you keep saying it, I'll believe it when I see it. You put Paul Heyman in charge. It changed a little bit. Maybe he wasn't the right guy for the job. He got kicked out. You put Eric Bischoff in a position. He got kicked out. I don't know. And now you got Bruce Pritchard in there who, I can't imagine he's a guy that's going to push the envelope too much or really. Raw to me has been the same that it has been. You got guys like Seth Rollins, who's so talented, but he's playing this again, another stupid gimmick where he's supposed to be the Messiah that saved Monday Night, and it's supposed to get heat, and it's really just like, I don't want to watch it.
I mean, that's not a terrible gimmick. Seth Rollins is I think he's doing very well with that gimmick.
He's doing the best he can with the gimmick. It's not it's him. He is not the problem. He's talented.
Yeah.
He can come across as a big heel, whatever role you put him in. But the problem just is, like you pointed out, how many people can actually relate to that? Now, I don't think many people want to see that. We've seen that same stale acting more. It's the same thing as seeing like we're going to have a contract signing, and let me guess, the table is going to get flipped, and then there's going to be a pull apart brawl, and there'll be 50 referees, but they can't hold one man back. It's the same thing every week.
Right. And I mean, it's not like AEW hasn't done anything that hasn't been done before either. It's just the execution of it has been a lot better. Now you bring up the Monday Night Messiah, who's not a relatable character. A guy that's very similar to that is MJF, I think. MJF, who is supposed to be better than you and you know it. I think everyone can relate to someone like that, or know someone who was like that in high school, that, very rich, very athletic, got arrogant, all the girls, got all the money, was a, tri-semester athlete.
He's a prick.
Yeah. I think everyone can relate to that, but he's a very cocky, and Seth Rollins is very cocky. So like the basic atmosphere of the characters are the same, but then they evolve and it's something that is unrelatable. That's the problem we got here. Yep. So
I agree.
I don't know if WWE can fix that. Will they fix that? How they fix that? But I do want to close with some interesting news here that I read that Edge and Daniel Bryan have joined the creative team. I don't know if you saw this.
Did not see that.
You did not see that. What are your thoughts on those two being part of the creative team in WWE? Do you think they can help Vince McMahon get on the right path with Raw and SmackDown?
Yes, if they give Edge and Daniel Bryan the freedom to actually train these guys and teach them how to get over. Like that's the problem. I'm sure some of these guys can get over by going out there and being themselves, or at least having somebody who can coach them or guide them in the right direction. No, don't do this. Try this. This will work. This will get you heat. This will get you over. This will get you the reaction. Daniel Bryan was crazy over with the Yes Movement. And, you can't really predict those things, but Edge came back after being on a hiatus for however long due to injury. And him and Randy Orton literally were having the best feud of their careers, maybe. And Edge was cutting some of the best promos. Like, that's what's missing. Give me a reason to care. If they got two guys in there that can coach them and guide that good young talent in the right direction, cool, that's great. But the buck stops with the boss. If it's up to Vince, is Vince going to say, you know what, I trust you guys, guide them, make this show better, let them go out there and do what they're supposed to do to get over? But that's the problem there.
I agree. And hopefully that this does change, and hopefully WWE does get better. I understand the situation right now is not the best, and they're losing their top guys. Like, listen, there's no Brock Lesnar, there's no Roman Reigns, there's no John Cena, no Charlotte, no Becky, no Ronda. So who steps up? They put themselves in a bad situation, and it's showing, because in the Attitude Era, if Austin left, they had The Rock. If The Rock was gone, they had Triple H. If Triple H was gone, they had Mick Foley. There was always this rotating carousel. But exactly. They had this rotating carousel. Yep. Now, okay, no Brock, no Goldberg, no Roman. We have to give Braun the belt by default. Drew McIntyre gets the belt without really the proper push he should have gotten. That's a problem.
Even if you think about it this way, when all those guys finally said, you know what, I am done. I'm done with wrestling. The Rock eventually left completely.
Yep.
You had guys like Stone Cold who said he was done. I'm just not going to wrestle anymore. What happened after that was you had all those upper mid-card guys like Edge, like JBL, even Cena. They came out and they were like, okay, we need you guys to be yourselves. Edge came out and he wasn't necessarily the guy in the Brood anymore. He was himself. He was the rated R superstar. He was himself with the volume turned up to 100.
Right.
JBL, all of a sudden, he's not in the APA anymore. He's this rich, arrogant guy that people hated. John Cena, he wasn't the battle rap guy anymore. And whatever you want to say about Cena, he was crazy over. That's what's missing. Like, you need to give the people a reason to watch your product and become invested in it. And I honestly haven't felt like I've been invested in Raw or SmackDown in a very long time. NXT, yes, because NXT is good. You can relate to the guys like Adam Cole and like a ton of the other guys on that show because they go out there and they command the room. They cut good promos. The matches are good. It's entertaining. You don't feel that. You don't get that with Raw and SmackDown anymore.
I agree. And AEW has been knocking it out of the park for the last month, and that's the reason why the ratings are going up. The TNT Championship Open Challenge has been good and showing people new, fresh people. Jericho and Orange Cassidy, I think, has been entertaining. The fact that Sammy Guevara is back and got a very positive response from what I've seen on social media, that's big. Darby Allin's back. You know, they have all their ducks in a row right now. WWE doesn't.
Like I said before, Eddie Kingston came out, cut a 5-minute promo. All those guys that were fired by WWE showed up at Slammiversary. That was the talk of the week. Former WWE guys or guys that most people probably never heard of. That was the talk of the week for professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Why WWE can't get that same attention when they have mass exposure all over the world is beyond me.
It's simple. They worry about the logo, not the talent.
Yep.
Simple as that.
The brand.
Let us know what you guys think. Should WWE build new stars? Do they already have stars? If they do, who are they? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to share us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPV Podcast. And for news, reviews, and conversations on all things pro wrestling, subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. For Ralph Valenti, my name's Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Zygo Babble.